Hello there, everybody. This is Pastor Dave from Church Glad Tidings in Northern California. And I've got my good friend, Craig Sawman Sawyer, with us today in the studio. And we're getting ready for a big event. That event is June 20th, 21st, and 22nd. And I might add, it's followed up by a week of training with ARC training. That's Association for the Recovery of Children.
Children.
So we're looking forward to that. And Craig's one of the speakers. And Craig, I just want to thank you for that. It meant a lot to me that you agreed to come. And when anyone talks about child rescue, your name usually comes up. And so I'd just like you to start by telling us what you're doing and how you got into it. I know that, well, uh, just share your military background and then how you segued into what you're doing now.
Yes, sir. Well, my military background, I started off in the Marine Corps and then I went over to the Navy SEAL teams and got combat action, Desert Shield, Desert Storm. I became a sniper instructor and then I got picked up for DevGru. So I went to the highest level, the tier one level of counter-terrorist operations and served there for the rest of my SEAL team career. And then when my wife started having babies, we she says, "We got baby on board." I realized I was gone 300 days a year, so I wanted to be home to be a good father, like my daddy was, Pastor David F. Sawyer. So I went into federal law enforcement. I did that for 5 years, and then I did high threat mobile security over in the war zones for the Department of State and then the intelligence community, moving their senior officials around in the war zones. And
Wow.
then I tried again to get home to be a better father, a more homebound father, and work in the film and television. Ended up over in South Africa running counter poacher operations for a big Animal Planet series called Rhino Wars. And then, so then I started finding out about child trafficking, and I realized that really had to be my fight. I was just convicted about it. I was really upset when I learned that my hometown, just north of Houston, Texas, was really the hottest epicenter of child sex trafficking in the country. And a friend of mine from the CIA had let me know what that was like. And I just felt very upset. And I knew that that's why I was on this planet, or at least I couldn't coexist with that. And so I began trying to make a documentary, Contraland, to expose the problem. And I saw that all of big tech, nothing against you Northern Californians, but all of big tech was
Yeah.
blocking me and did not
Yeah.
want that truth out there. And it was not subtle, Dave, how they
Yeah.
were trying to stop me from crowdfunding and bringing that doc together. So I founded a nonprofit organization, Veterans for Child Rescue, to rally the funding to make the documentary to alert the populace. And that's what we've been doing ever since. Uh, Film, television, radio, and running joint sting operations with federal and local law enforcement, arresting the predators to put a stop to their rampage against the children. As it seems like all the sickos just have a hatred of children and doesn't make any sense any other way. Just destroying the little ones at industrial scale. So we're out there fighting it a lot of different ways. You're muted, sir. There you go. Now
What
you're
what
clear.
year? Yeah, what year did you start Veterans for Child Rescue?
2017, and it's interesting, spiritually speaking, as soon as I put in the paperwork to found the actual nonprofit to go to war against those who were defiling children, our daughter was abducted and
Wow.
violently raped at knife point, repeatedly defiled, deeply traumatized, and she got free from this monster. And we got her back and she decided she wanted to fight back. So now she's our fiercest predator hunter. God has turned her into a warrior that's put more bad guys away now than I have. So it's just
That's
funny.
awesome.
Yeah, because it's all his power anyway. He doesn't need my
Yeah.
pedigree or my
Yeah.
my cool guy factor or any of that. In fact,
Yeah.
I look at all that I've done in my life and it's trinkets. It's nothing. He doesn't need that. So
Right.
it's
But
humbling. Yeah.
you've been focused on this since 2017 then.
Yes, sir.
And so you've seen a lot, no doubt.
Yeah. We're
Uh,
learning every day.
yeah.
Well, it's a
Yeah.
dysfunction. Like why eradicate your own offspring? Like why defile and destroy your own offspring? In the natural sense, it doesn't make any logical sense. So we've been investigating, interviewing numerous survivors and arresting the predators, interviewing them, and we're learning a lot about how and why this all happens.
Yeah. Yeah. And it all is in its own way, it's all satanic ritual abuse because you don't do things like that unless you're motivated by the wicked one. A minute ago, you referred to your father as a pastor.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you grew up in the faith, and when you were growing up, did you see because they're all different kind of Christian traditions, but did you see anything that was overtly demonic or anything when you were growing up, or did you know about Satanism? Did you see the soft white underbelly of the whole mess when you were growing up?
I did. I saw a bit of it. I would see people come to my father for rescue. As any loving pastor, he's a shepherd and leading people out of darkness. There were people that were heavily into drug abuse and alcoholism, the
Yeah,
occult. A lot of people deep into the occult, they didn't know how they'd found themselves in darkness, but they were dealing with some stuff they didn't understand, or worse, they did understand and were in deep. And I watched him deliver those people and a lot of the dysfunction and the vile antics that come out of those people. I did see him
right.
deliver at least one woman that I remember very clearly of demonic oppression,
Yeah,
and that
yeah,
one was pretty dramatic.
yeah.
But he was just calm. He didn't seem rattled or scared or even concerned. He knew whose authority was moving through him.
There you go.
It was his
Come on,
heavenly
Pop.
father, and he was perfectly calm and
Yeah,
knew the score. So that
right.
made an impression on me when this woman was
Yeah,
doing some really bizarre stuff, and he just loved on her, and
yeah,
he spoke these things out of her, and then after she was calm, they talked for a few more minutes, and he gave her a hug, and it was
yeah,
an older woman in our church, but she was fine for
yeah,
forevermore. So it's
yeah.
just
What age were
interesting
you
as a
at the
young man.
time, Craig?
I was in probably about junior high age is what I remember
Yeah,
because his elder is one of his elders that was with him, kind of his wingman, and this was after church because you may understand this better than I do. She stood up in the middle of the service and she was walking up the middle aisle toward him with her hands out, almost like Frankenstein, a very awkward
yeah,
walk. She
yeah,
was staggering toward him, and one of his friends, his elders, just went and put his arm around her and just escorted, just turned her around and escorted her back out, where she wasn't going to be
yeah,
a disturbance. And it was
yeah,
quiet, but then afterward, then this thing started
yeah.
speaking through her and all that. But
Right. Yeah, right.
now that learning what from you and some of your testimony of what you've been through, I think maybe that was an animation, like a body jumping or one of those types of functions.
Yeah,
Like, but I can't know for sure, but it was that awkward, staggering
yeah,
kind of
right.
walk, and
Yeah,
something was driving her to stagger toward him while he was up
exactly.
there preaching the word. So,
Yeah. Well, th those are good experiences for people at any age to have. But once your eyes are open to the supernatural world around us, then it changes your perspective of everything that happens, in the natural plane. But what have you
well,
learned since?
the dysfunction makes a lot more sense, Dave, because
Yeah,
if you try to
right,
describe it all or understand it all in the physical, natural sense, a lot of these things
right,
don't make any sense. Once you put your spiritual lens on, you understand
right.
why all this crazy
Exactly.
stuff is happening.
Exactly. Opens your eyes to it.
Yes, sir.
So you mentioned in in terms of rescuing kids, the satanic element involved. Um, have you gotten into any satanic cults, or is it just the fact that these kids, if they're being used in sex trafficking, the power behind it is obviously satanic. But are those just demonized people, or have you run into organized cults that are doing this kind of thing as sex rituals, trying to gain power through demented sex rituals, or what have you seen along those lines?
Well, there is a power that they get from it, but it's always temporary. It's always
Yeah,
with a price. It's always futile, always foolish.
right,
And because Satan's the father of lies, and the only
right.
reason he's going to give anyone power is to work them over and abuse them later. So
Exactly,
what we are seeing over the last several years are numerous survivors of I'm not ready to say it yet, but there's a certain religion, and
Mm,
the religion is supposed to be about Jesus Christ, but at the very top, it is actually not. And this is a very
yeah,
prominent, very powerful, very wealthy religion here in the United States.
wow,
And we have numerous survivors of satanic ritual abuse from their most senior
wow,
Christendom, their most senior.
wow.
So that's
So
heartbreaking to
that
learn about.
reminds me, Craig. Yeah, that reminds me of Christ Day, when the leaders of the synagogue, he said, "You're of your father the devil, and you are the synagogue of Satan." The people that were standing around were chagrined at that because they viewed them as the Jewish religious leaders of the day, and of course the implication of being a religious leader is you're supposed to be a little closer to God than those that are following you. You know, the whole
Yeah.
idea is to be a leader, you have to be out front. You know, but
Well, well,
Jesus,
with some of these religions, they treat them they really resort to idolatry. I mean,
yeah,
and it's like
yeah,
God gets put on a shelf somewhere, and
yeah,
it's all about the institution. Protect the brand at all cost, regardless of how many children are being defiled and
right,
murdered and tortured and
right,
raped and trafficked. It's
right,
like God wouldn't have anything to do with any of that. So why
yeah,
would you protect an institution that's partaking in that? So the people are
yeah,
more loyal to their institution under the banner of Jesus than they are to Jesus himself, and that
yeah.
that falls
Come
under
on,
idolatry.
yeah, yeah. So, would you have any knee-jerk response to what percentage of the kids that you're trying to rescue were dragged into it through some kind of a religious mechanism versus like snatched off the street or in a satanic coven? I know, and you know, that just because it's under the guise of a Christian religion does not mean it isn't a satanic coven. But I wonder how many of them are directly related to something that's happening through a priest or a a church, or you have any feeling for that percentage wise?
Well, with the smaller children, they're looking for these 300 something thousand that they just pull a number out that the government will admit to losing. But the number is probably at least triple that. And I don't have any confidence that most of these children are still alive, Dave. I think they've been sacrificed from what we're
Yeah,
seeing. So what we're learning is that they're covens and cult groups
yeah,
that are doing this, and they do it for wealth and power. Although again, foolishly and temporary,
yeah,
they do get some perks from the fallen. And so
yeah,
they do rituals on the children. And we're
right,
learning more now about the MK Ultra and Monarch mind control programming. It's all trauma-based program. And a lot of the
yeah,
Nazis brought it over from World War II. We brought it in Operation Paperclip. A lot of the
yeah,
Nazis from World War II. So Werner von Braun and all the rocket scientists founded
yeah,
NASA and all that, and psychologists more into the CIA and other agencies for those manipulations on prisoners and agents to try to get more out of him. And
Yeah.
but it's very um, what powers it up. You know, you would understand. A lot of people wouldn't. Is literally it's demonic. When you horrify and torture someone into splitting, and then these people they train each
Right.
personality part that they split the person into, and
Right.
they literally demonize. They assign demons to each personality part, one to run the program. In other words, if it's an assassin program, they train that personality part on the physical skill sets, but they also demonize them to empower them
Right.
to a greater degree, and then another one to seal it so that that part does not get exposed or discovered, and that that programming does not break down. So a lot of
Yeah.
the people that we're dealing with now in their adulthood, in their 30s, 40s, and 50s, are people who were in this religious institution who were deeply traumatized and programmed and enslaved. They've later become Christians. And in
Hmm.
their relationship with Jesus Christ, their programming has begun breaking down in their other personality parts that they weren't aware
Yeah.
of. And
Yeah.
then all that can be opened up and they can be dealt with and healed and delivered part
Right.
by part by part. So that's just it's interesting to me how sophisticated and how orchestrated that is and how
Yeah.
deliberate. And I don't believe,
Yeah.
Dave, that this level of control over each other is anything that humans would have discovered organically. I think this is just my opinion based on what little I know so far. The ability to psychologically traumatize, split, demonize, and control someone as a slave with this type of control, I believe this was knowledge gained from the fallen by
Yeah.
wicked
I
men who
agree with
want
you.
wealth and power. They make that
Absolutely.
technology exchange, they sell their soul,
Absolutely.
whatever that looks like. And that's why they've learned this because it's too effective. And I don't
Right.
believe that humans should have ever were ever meant to have that level of control over each other. So
Right. Never. The other thing, Craig, is who would have ever imagined that? It had to come through the fallen ones who understood that a personality could be splintered and that different assignments, demonic assignments, could be attached to each one. I mean, that's not something that you would just come up with on your own.
I mean, how would you even
That's
start trying to figure that out?
right,
So
right. Yeah, I agree completely. That's the strategy of the fallen ones in their quest to slavishly dominate mankind. And then, of course, they find people who, through lust for power and sexual lust and all kinds of other things, then will party with them in the evil that they're doing. How many of the people that you're rescuing have made it into adulthood? And I want to go back to something you said, Craig, and you mentioned that the government uh, had admitted to what 350,000 that were missing, and
I
you
think they
mentioned it's
said
probably three
325, but
times. Yeah,
yeah,
you
yeah.
mentioned possibly three times that much, so that puts it up at about a million. You also said something about missing ones. Many of them were dead. And the way that works, isn't it, is that they sexually exploit them, including like harvesting adrenochrome during rituals and all kinds of the money that they make through just the prostituting them out to deviants and pedophiles and all that kind of stuff happens until the child is used up, and then they become a blood sacrifice in a satanic ritual, a human sacrifice. Is it, would you concur with that?
Yes, sir. Yeah, and they're sending them. A lot of them they send them well to different places when they age out and they're not a child anymore. Technically, they'll some of them they'll send down to Mexico and they'll have them ritually sacrificed down there or to other groups. It's just look, it's ancient, Dave. You know that
Yep.
it's the same thing that the ancient Israelites were doing, putting their children through the fire. This dealing with the same
Right.
entities. It's just
Yep.
that there's a different spin or different face put on it. But you're when you look behind the curtain, it's the Same
Right.
fallen ones that are still making war on mankind, and children
Right.
are the most high value target. And
Right. Right.
you
The
know,
blood of
and
the innocents.
yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, and I believe they're targeted because they are innocent, and
Yes.
because their souls are still very pure, and if
Right.
possible, while still in the womb. And I believe that's why Margaret Sanger and the eugenics and the white supremacy
Absolutely.
and all the demonic filth behind Planned
Right.
Parenthood, they
Yeah.
set up in minority neighborhoods and target their children for
Right.
eradication. And the people in those neighborhoods think that Planned Parenthood somehow their friend.
Yeah.
There's so
Right.
much deception.
There's
Yeah.
so much deception. And what those people that promote abortion don't know is that satanic rituals necessitate innocent blood, and that people that are perpetrating ritual sacrifices to the devil, if they can't find a child, a living child, they'll go down to a Planned Parenthood and at least get the blood of aborted fetuses to offer as a sacrifice to Satan. And you mentioned deception. Uh, Amazingly, millions of people in America uh, have been deceived into thinking it is about reproductive rights. They have no idea that Baal worship, Molech worship, all these heinous uh, systems of fallen religion. They've been happening from time immemorial. And it's the blood of the innocents that powers really, it powers, of course, the sacrifices. But even the money that it generates is used for the empowerment of evil worldwide. Uh, let's talk about why we're doing the Rev 17 conference. And let me just say to the listeners, God put it in my heart to bring together great leaders like Craig Sawyer and others that have been fighting the good fight of faith out there in the trenches, and to bring them all together and to record the best of the best, and then to flood the internet with it to wake people up and help people understand what's going on. We called it Rev 17. And again, that's coming up June 20th, 21st, 22nd. Craig Sawyer will be here along with many mutual friends and great, great speakers. I think it's going to be the best of the best. But um, the reason we called it Rev 17 is because I think people too often, Craig, they either look away from the whole mess or they only see the mess and never take heart in the fact that God sees the end from the beginning. And 2,000 years ago, he foresaw this day and talked about the culmination of evil at the end of the age being manifest uh, through the type of a fallen city, Mystery Babylon, and through a personage that was the epitome of evil that's referred to in Revelation 17 and elsewhere as the whore of Babylon. But it says that the whore of Babylon, she makes the kings of the earth wealthy through her trafficking. And then it has a whole list of things that she's trafficking, which is basically anything to turn to make a buck. But it culminates in the statement 2,000 years ago that she traffics in human souls, and the kings of the earth are made wealthy. They know that the whore of Babylon is vile, and but they're in awe of her. She says, "I will reign as queen forever. Nobody can take my power from me." But the beauty and the reason we named this the Rev 17 conference is Revelation 17 says, "But she shall be destroyed in a single day, and the kings of the earth will wonder and say, what happened to the whore that made us rich with her trafficking?" And so I hope you who are listening to this, I hope you'll come out, go online to the Church of Glad Tidings, look for the Rev 17 conference. That's REV 17, Revelation 17. The fuller name is Destroying the Whore of Babylon. But the reason that we're locking arms together is because this is a worldwide problem. And God told us 2,000 years ago there would be a worldwide solution, and that the embodiment of evil that traffics human souls, it would be ended one day. And it seems to indicate that it's a sudden thing. Everybody's shocked, like, wow, what happened?
Within an
And
hour.
so, yeah. So thank God for Vets for Child Rescue, Association for Child Recovery will be here. Mary Flynn O'Neill will be here. Laura Logan will be here. Mike Smith will be here. Doc Chambers will be here. I know I'm leaving out a lot of people. I think Ann Vandersteel will be here. But anyway, we're gonna join together, and remember, this is too big a project for any one of our ministries. But if we will band together and help one another and pray for one another and believe in one another, then when that promise of Revelation 17 is fulfilled, you and I are going to be slapping high fives and say, "We did it, brother. We took her down." So
We're
anyway,
doing our best.
uh, before we close, Craig, anything else you want to say about your ministry or the Rev 17 conference, or the problem of child trafficking as a
It's
whole?
just a question I
Any
have. So my friend Russ Dizdar, the late Russ Dizdar, called the Whore of Babylon a system. Because I was looking, which city or what nation is this? And he said it's a system. And to me, that makes sense. A global demonic system, and that's infested everything. And that
it,
is the trafficking network. And that is what the
it is
global power players are
right.
involved in.
I agree completely,
Okay.
Craig, and that's
All right.
why it overlaps so many subsystems. It's
Okay.
not a single mechanism. It's a spirit that is controlling, like Scripture says, the systems, plural, the systems of this world are under the power of the wicked one. And
Okay.
it's those systems that are typified by this whore of Babylon, and also by the city. The city that is filled with every unclean bird, and mystery Babylon. It's just portrayed as a very, very evil place. But the city and the woman represents really the spirit of Antichrist at the end of the age, that is everything perverse, everything wicked, everything opposed to righteousness, peace, joy, and the power of the Holy Spirit. And it's making its bid to control the world. But thank God for guys like Craig Sawyer and our buds. Uh, some people think, "Oh my gosh," and hide their head in the sand. But
We're not to
God's
fear.
raising up a whole army of Marines and Special Forces soldiers in the spirit realm that are willing to say, "Not on my watch. We are going to do whatever it takes to stop this, and we'll fight the fight until it's won." And so I want to thank you, Craig, again for all you've done. I know that comes with a price. I know now you and I are being criticized together by some of the same people. It's amazing what they come up with. But they've now
Hey,
tried to.
if arresting wicked people who harm children is going to get me in trouble, then I'll take the
Come
trouble.
on, come on,
Yeah,
Craig. But listen, I love you, man.
you too, brother.
I don't need to tell a special forces guy to fight the good fight of faith. I know you're doing it, but I'm anxious for you to come and be part of Rev 17, and I'll look forward to seeing you then, Craig.
All right, we can't wait. God bless.
All right. God
See ya.
bless.